Dreams and Omens and Media of Communication Between Gods and Men by Edward Clodd. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Public Domain Scholar. Dreams as Omens and Media of Communication Between Gods and Men. Reference has now been made to the part played by dreams as supposed channels of communication between heaven and earth, as portents, omens, etc. The common belief among the nations of antiquity that they were sent by the gods, and the like belief lurking in the minds of the superstitious to this day, are the scarcely altered survivals of barbaric confusion respecting them. When men had advanced from the earlier stages of undefined wonder and bewilderment concerning the powers around and above him, to anthropomorphic conceptions of them, i.e., to making them in his own image, the events of his dreams were striking confirmation of his notions about the constant intervention of spiritual beings, gods, chiefs, and ancestors in the affairs of life. That personal life and will with which the root intelligence invests the objects of its all. Waving trees, swirling waters, drifting clouds, whirling winds, stately march of sun and star seemed especially manifest in dreams and visions. In their unrelated and bewildering, or, on the other hand, their surpassing clear incidents, the powers indwelling in all things seemed to come nearer than in the less sensational occurrences of the day, uttering their monitions, or making known their will. They were the media by which this and that thing was commanded or forbidden, or by which guidance and counsel and knowledge of the future were given. To induce them, therefore, became a constant effort. The discovery that fasting is a certain method of procuring them is one reason of its prevalence in the lower culture. Amongst all the indigenous races of North America, abstinence has been practiced as a chief means of securing supernatural inspiration. The redskin to become a sorcerer or to secure a revelation from his totem, or the Eskimo to become an Angekok, will endure the most severe privations. It is believed that whatever is seen in the first dream, thus produced by fasting, becomes the Manitou or guardian spirit of life, corresponding to the daimon of Socrates, and whoever by much fasting is favored with dreams, and cultivates the art of explaining them as bearing on the future, becomes the feared and consulted medicine man of his tribe. His Kike winds or records are finally shown to the old people, who meet together and consult upon them. They in the end give their approval and declare that he is gifted as a prophet, is inspired with wisdom, and is fit to lead in the councils of the people. Very slender data were needed for the conclusions first drawn from dreams. Let the death of a friend or foe be the incident, and the event happen. Let a hunting path fill the half-torpid fancy, and a day's fasting follow. Let the mother of a young sportsman dream that she saw a bear in a certain place, and the son, guided by her account, find the bear where indicated, and kill it. The arbitrary relation is set up forthwith, as Lord Bacon says, men mark the hits, but not the misses, and 1,000 dreams unfulfilled count as nothing against one dream fulfilled. Out of that is shaped, as dream lore shows, a canon of interpretation by which whole races will explain their dreams, never staying, when experience happens to confirm it, to wonder that the correspondences are not more frequent than they are. Where the arbitrary act was wrought, the isolated or conflicting influences manifest, their deity or demon was working. So the passage from the crude interpretation of his dreams by the barbarian to the formal elaboration of the dream oracle is obvious. It was only one of many modes by which the gods were thought to hold converse with men, and by which their will was divined. It was one phase of that many-sided belief in power, for good or evil, inhering in everything, and which led man to see omens in the common events of life, in births, in the objects anyone met in a journey or saw in the sky, to divine the future by numbers, by the lines in the hand, by the song and flight of birds, lurking in the word augury, by the entrails of sacrificed men and animals. Sometimes the god sends the message through a spiritual being, an angel, literally messenger. Sometimes he himself speaks in vision, but more often through the symbolism of both familiar and unfamiliar things. to interpret this as a serious science, and skill and shrewdness applied therein with success were passports to high place and royal favor. In this we have the familiar illustrations of Joseph and Daniel, and indeed we need not travel beyond the books of the Old Testament for abundant and varied examples of the importance attached to dreams and visions, and of the place accorded to dreams, an importance undiminished until we come to the literature of the centuries just before Christ. For example, in the book of Jesus, the son of Sirach, we read, "Vain and deceitful hopes befit the senseless man, and dreams make fools rejoice. Like one who grasps at a shadow and chases the wind, is he who puts trust in dreams." In the belief that through dreams and oracles Yahweh made known his will, the influence of older beliefs and their literature is apparent. Among the Akkadians, a pre-Semitic race in Babylonia, there existed a mass of treatises on magic and divination by dreams and visions, and both from this and from Egyptian sources, blended with survivals from their barbaric past, the Hebrews largely drew. In this, too, there is nothing new under the sun. Homer, painting the vividness and agonizing incompleteness of the passing visions, affirms that dreams from Jove proceed, although sometimes to deceive men. Plato assigns prophetic character to the images seen in them. Aristotle sees a divination concerning some things in dreams, which is not incredible. The answer to oracles was sought in them, as when the worshipper slept in a temple on the skin of a sacrificed ram, and learned his destiny through the dream that came. The Stoics argued that if the gods love and care for men and are all-knowing, they will tell their purposes to men in sleep. Cicero attaches high importance to the faculty of interpreting them. Their phenomena, like those of oracles and predictions, should, he contends, be explained just as the grammarians and the commentators explain the poets. With the influence of these beliefs in the air, and with the legend visions of Scripture as authority, the divine origin of dreams became a doctrine of the Christian Church. Tertullian says that, "We receive dreams from God, there being no man so foolish as never to have known any dreams come true." And in his De Anima, reference is made to a host of writers of dream treatises. For the most part, they are but names. Their treatises have perished, but enough remains for the perusal of the curious regarding ancient rules of interpretation and the particular significance of certain dreams. The current views of dreams in classical antiquity are believed to be partly embodied in the Orina Critica of Artemidorus of Ephesus, who flourished about the middle of the 2nd century, and who reduces dream interpretation to a body of elaborate rules. While amongst Christian writers, Synesius of Cyrene, who lived 2 centuries later, holds a corresponding place. Both classical and patristic writers supply copious details concerning the classes into which dreams were divided, and which have some curious correspondences among the Oriental nations, as well as in our dream lore, e.g., when Artemidorus says that he who dreams he hath lost a tooth shall lose a friend. We may compare with this a quotation which Brand gives from the Sappho and Foe of Lily, a playwright of the time of Elizabeth. "Dreams have their truth. Dreams are but dottings, which come either by things we see in the day or meats that we eat, and so the common sense preferring it to be the imaginative. I dreamed, says Ismena, mine eye tooth was loose, and that I thrust it out with my tongue. It foretelleth, replies Meleta, the loss of a friend, and I ever thought thee so full of prattle that thou wouldst thrust out the best friend with thy tattling." It is, however, needless to quote from Artemidorus and others of their kin. They do but furnish samples of the ingenuity applied to profitless speculations on matters which were fundamental then, and around which the mind played, unchecked and unchallenged. Moreover, the subtle distinctions made between dreams and former times were slowly effaced, or sank to their proper level in the gossip of chapbooks. Our European Kike wins. But the belief in the dream as having a serious meaning, and in the spectral appearances and visions as real existences, remained as strong as in any barbarian or pagan. In an atmosphere charged with the supernatural, apparitions and the like were matters of course, the particular form of the illusion to which the senses testified being in harmony with the ideas of the age. The devil does not appear to Greek or Roman, but he sorely troubled the saints, unless their nerves were, like Luther's, strong enough to overmaster him. Luther speaks of him as coming into a cell and making a great noise behind the stove, and of his walking in the cloister above his cell at night. But as I knew it was the devil, he says, I paid no attention to him and went to sleep. Skeptics now and again arose, protesting against the current belief, but they were as a voice crying in the desert. One Henry Cornelius Agrippa, in the 15th century, a man born out of due time, says, to this delusion not a few great philosophers have given not a little credit, especially Democritus, Aristotle, Cinxius, etc., so far building on examples of dreams, which some accident hath made to be true, that thence they endeavor to persuade men that there are no dreams but what are real. His words have not yet lost their purport, or the credulity of man, the persistence with which he clings to the shadow of the supernatural after having surrendered the substance, seem almost a constant quantity, varying only in form. Unteachable by experience, fools still pay their guineas to mediums to rap out inane messages from the departed and send postage stamps to the astronomer royal asking him to work the planets for them and secure them luck and love and lawsuits. Nor is there any cure for this but in wise culture of the mind, wise correction, and wholesome control of the emotions. By faithfully intending the mind to the realities of nature, as Bacon has it, and by living and working among men in a healthy, sympathetic way, exaggeration of a particular line of thought or feeling is prevented, and the balance of the faculties best preserved. For, adds Dr. Maudsley, in pregnant and well-chosen words, there are not two worlds, a world of nature and a world of human nature, standing over against one another in a sort of antagonism, but one world of nature, in the orderly evolution of which human nature has its subordinate part. Delusions and hallucinations may be described as discordant notes in the grand harmony. It should, then, be every man's steadfast aim, as a part of nature, his patient work, to cultivate such entire sincerity of relations with it, so to think, feel, and act always in intimate unison with it, to be so completely one with it in life, that when the summons comes to surrender his mortal part to absorption into it, he does so, not fearfully, as to an enemy who has vanquished him, but trustfully, as to a mother who, when the day's task is done, bids him lie down to sleep. End of Dreams as Omens and Media of Communication Between Gods and Men by Edward Clodd.